Hey kiddos, in this video we're going to learn how to determine the surface area of solids, and in particular rectangular prisms. We saw in the other video, or in the other lesson, how to calculate the surface area of a rectangular prism, where we take the length, multiply it times the height. Since there are two sides of that, we're going to add that to length times the width, and add that to width times the height. And so when we're looking at this figure, our lesson for today is seeing how we can add or subtract surface areas to calculate what our irregular or composite figure is. So when we look at the following, for this rectangular prism, we have a length, a width, and a height. We have a length of 8, width of 2, and a height of 5. And then for this figure here, we have a length, a width, and a height, where our length is this part here, which is 2 centimeters. Width would be this part here, which is 7 centimeters, and the height would be 2 centimeters. And so to calculate the area, and let's use a different color so that we don't get these two mixed up. We'll use blue for this. Length times height, so 8 times 5 is 40, and then 40 times 2, since there's a front and a back, that would be 80. A length and a width, 8 times 2 is 16, and then 16 times 2, that's 32. And then width times height, which is 2 and 5, which is 10. And then multiplying that times 2, that gives us 20. And then down here, our length and height, so 2 times 2, that's 4. 4 times 2 is 8. We're going to add that to our length and height, our length and width, So it's 2 times 7, that's 14. And there's two sides to that, so that's going to be equal to 28. And then last but not least, the width times the height. 2 times 7 is 14 again, times 2, that's 28. Now, when we're looking at these two figures, we see we have this first one, and if you add all of this together, this is equal to 132 centimeters squared. We don't want to forget our units. And then when we add all of this together, this is equal to 64 centimeters squared. Now, if we were to add the two of these together, it would equal to 196. And if we were to write 196 centimeters cubed, or centimeters squared, this would be incorrect. And the reason why this would be incorrect is because we have a part of this rectangular prism that's attached. It's the backside of this portion here that we're actually not going to be calculating because that part it's not separated. We want to subtract this part here. And what's that part equal to? Well, that part is equal to this area here, which is the length and the height, or what we're calling the length and the height, which is 2 times 2, which is 4. So we're going to need to subtract that from our total. And when we subtract that from our total, when we're not going to calculate that back portion, then our overall surface area for this figure changes. And that's going to be equal to. Now, when we subtract this back portion, we want to make sure that we recognize that this 2 by 2, or this 4 centimeters squared, is both the part that is attached to this front as well as what's attached to this part here. Because there's a blue 4 centimeters squared that's right attached to that as well. That's not going to be part of our total surface area. And so we're going to subtract from this 196 8 centimeters squared which would give us a total of 188 centimeters squared would be the surface area for this solid figure here that we have. Now, the key point, similar to what we saw in the last lesson, is that surface area can be added and subtracted. The formula that we want to make sure that we're remembering is 2 times length times height plus 2 times length times width plus 2 times width times height. If we can remember that this is the formula for surface area, then much of today's lesson you'll be able to follow along and do well with. Alrighty? Sensational. Let's take a look at the next question. So we have our interacting with new material question, and it says that we have this cube-shaped hole that's cut out of the rectangular prism as it's shown below. We're given the dimensions. Dimensions that are shown are that x is equal to 4 centimeters. So this is a 4 by 4 by 4 cube that was taken out of our rectangular prism. Y is equal to 30 centimeters. Z is equal to 24 centimeters. And we know that x is equal to 4 centimeters. All right, now that we have that, how can we calculate how much paint would we need to cover the entire outside of the figure? So if we were to start off with just finding the surface area of the top portion of this rectangular prism, what would that be? Well, it'd be 30 centimeters by 24 centimeters. And to find the area of the top, or just this rectangle, it'd be 30 times 24, which is 720 centimeters squared. And if we're going to subtract from this part, that's a 4 by 4. 4 times 4 gives us 16. So we're going to subtract 16 from this top portion, which would give us 704 centimeters squared. So this top part of the rectangle is equal to 704 centimeters squared. Now we know if we can calculate the top, then we can calculate the bottom as well. So this, we're just going to want to double this to give us 1,408 centimeters squared for the top and the bottom. Now what about the side face? We're going to call this the front face of the rectangular prism, which is 30 by 4. Well, 30 times 4 is 120 centimeters squared. So we're going to take that 120 centimeters squared and we're going to double it, which would give us 240 centimeters squared. And now if we were to take the side of our rectangle is 4 centimeters by 24 centimeters. And then 4 times 24, that gives us 96. So this would be equal to 96 centimeters squared. And if we double 96 centimeters squared, we get 192 centimeters squared. So just a quick recap. If we're taking the top along with that cube taken out, because it's a 4 by 4 square from what they told us that x is equal to 4, if we subtract that out, that's going to be equal to just 704. That's the top. The front face of the rectangular prism of this cube is going to be 120 doubled, which is 240. And then last but not least, the sides are going to be equal to 96 centimeters squared. And if we double that, that's 192. And so if we add that all together, we get a grand total of 1,840 centimeters squared. So the total area or total surface area of this rectangular prism with this cube cut out would be 1,840 centimeters squared. Once again, our key point, kiddos, is that we can calculate surface area of rectangular prisms using the following formula, this key point that we have right here. If we use this formula, we can add and subtract surface areas to determine what the surface area of a rectangular prism is. Great. Let's get on with our lesson for today.